Okay, good afternoon. We'll go ahead and get this kicked off. Welcome to our joint panel event on the Law Enforcement Embedded Social Worker Program in North Snohomish County. I want to thank each and every one of you for taking the time to come out and join us this afternoon. My name is Nehring. I serve on the Snohomish County Council representing District 1 in North County, and I'll be your MC this afternoon. I want to take a moment to recognize some elected officials who have joined us here and are not on the stage. So we've got State Representative Carolyn Eslick from the 39th Legislative District. If you can give us a wave in the back there. We've got our Snohomish County Prosecuting Attorney Adam Cornell is here. Thanks, Adam. Snohomish County District Court Judge Anthony Howard is here. Arlington City Councilwoman Jan Schweddy. Thanks for joining us, Jan. And Linwood City Councilman George Herbst. So just a quick note, we've got 3 panels here this afternoon, and then we will all be available afterwards for questions once the program is over. And so a note for that, if you'd like to stick around and ask questions of any of the panelists, we're all planning to stick around for that. So this event represents 1 year since we started the Law Enforcement Embedded Social Worker Program in North Snohomish County. And this program has been a tremendous partnership between Snohomish County and the cities of Arlington and Marysville. And it serves as an innovative approach to addressing substance use disorder, mental illness, and homelessness in our communities. So today we've got 3 panels to discuss the program and its effects in the community with the individuals involved and the next steps for the program in our collaborative approach to addressing this crisis. And so without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first panel. To my right here, we've got Snohomish County Sheriff Ty Trenary, Marysville Police Chief Rick Smith, and Arlington Police Chief Jonathon Ventura. And so the law enforcement officials on this panel are going to discuss kind of the history of the program and their observations on crime and neighborhood impacts as a result of the program. Thank you.
So we're having a few little details worked out. We didn't know they were supposed to come to the podium or sit down there. So I'm going to try to be a change agent. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for coming this afternoon. It's nice to see new faces because this issue is an issue that I don't think we get a chance to get out and talk enough about. I want to give you a couple of sound bites. There's some really good experts up here that hopefully will be able to take a little bit of time to kind of share the nitty-gritty of what we're doing. So recently there was a TV episode that got a lot of people talking. And it had to do with Seattle, and it had to do with the opioid crisis. Let me start by saying we talk a lot about homelessness, the homelessness problem. Whether it's here at Smokey Point, down in Marysville, down in Everett, we talk about the homelessness problem. But it's not just a homelessness problem. It's a problem with mental health, and it's a problem with addiction. I have been in policing for over 30 years, and I'm a big believer in what we stand for. I will tell you, we are really good at putting handcuffs on people and taking them to jail. We're really good at that. I've spent a career solving community problems as a community policing deputy, finding out what ailed the community, arresting the problem, and moving on to the next step. So, as the sheriff, people will ask me all the time, well, Ty, why aren't you just taking people to jail? And I will tell you, we did that for 7.5 years of this epidemic. And the problem just got worse. It got incredibly worse. And so, we've created, through a multi-relationship, lots and lots of organizations working together, a whole new approach to handling this issue. And I'm going to tell you, it's been challenging. But the goal has been to make communities safer. It doesn't look or feel like much of what we've done in policing over the last 30 years, but here's the end result. We're seeing crime related to homelessness decrease. We've had 500 people come through this new program, get help, get healthy, and get out of the system. When we first started, we had a group of people, and we called it CHART, where we identified chronic utilizers, some of which were using more than $1 million of public safety dollars through law enforcement, the courts, public defenders, EMS, and hospitals. And we identified those folks, worked in a collaboration, Everett PD's in the room, and said, what can we do to turn it off upstream? All of those people have been helped and moved on. So what you're going to hear about in the next few minutes, and I'm about out of time, is what we're doing and where we plan to go. I completely understand that when you drive around, it feels like nothing has changed. But I can promise you, what we're trying to do is be fiscally responsible while at the same time making our community safe, and we think we're on the right path. I'll be here all afternoon afterwards if people want to ask me questions, but it gives me a privilege to introduce the police chief from Marysville and my friend Rick Smith.
Thank you, Sheriff. One of the things, I have to go on a timer here because I can tend to talk long. First thing that I'd like to do is I'd like to thank all of our partners. Sheriff Trenary, County Executive Dave Summers, County Council members, County Human Services, City of Arlington, Smokey Point Business Group, faith-based groups within all of North Snohomish County and into Everett, nonprofits, and community members. You see, taking a holistic approach at a community problem is such where we need a lot of help and support. Government can't necessarily solve everything. We started this endeavor in September of 2017. Now, the county and Everett had something going already with the Embedded Social Worker Program, the Office of Neighborhoods, and trying to help the population, the homeless population. The mayor and I, Mayor John Nehring, then discussed the issues thoroughly. We closely monitor crime stats, which we do on a regular basis and has been ever since the mayor has been in office. We saw that most national approaches to this issue was singularly focused. It was either human resources or human services or law enforcement. But we realized from that one perspective was not good enough. Neither enforcement or social services could actually address the issue. So we came up with a long-standing and hopefully substantiated way to address the problem. There is a difference between homelessness and being transient. And I want to say this to this group because our approach has been premised on that. We have a philosophy of trying to address this holistically. Homelessness, in my opinion, while transient population is a part of that, I see homelessness as people that can't necessarily help themselves or they've had bad circumstances. The transient population is one that's committed to criminal behavior, and that's how I separate the group out, and the mayor and I have talked about that. We realized that we needed a holistic approach based on a philosophy of getting people the help that they need, if they wanted it, through services, and include addressing criminal behavior through compassion to help, support, and ultimately give hope. Second, we needed to provide accountability and responsibility with enforcement strategies to reduce transient criminal behavior because it affects our businesses and our communities. The mayor committed and added additional officers to help support us over the last 3 years, and our overall goal with this project was to help 25 people in a 2-year period. The numbers that I'm going to give you in a second is a 1-year operational period. So remember that, 25 people. And then reduce crime. In 2017, for Marysville, crime spiked in specific areas where transients congregated. Our patrol officers, Regional Property Crimes Unit, which consists of Marysville and the Snohomish County Sheriff's Office, our code enforcement team, our PROAC unit, and our legal office really focused on criminal activity. We implemented the Embedded Social Worker Program in 2018, last year, which added the final ingredient to have a holistic approach for us. We were able to address burglaries, thefts, vehicle prowls, and vehicle thefts. Through this program and dealing with one particular encampment, we contacted 32 clients, made 11 arrests, and recovered $31,000 in stolen property, which made a net reduction of vehicle prowls and commercial burglaries of 30% within that area. So there is a correlation to transients and criminal behavior, which is why I started this off the way that I did. Citywide, the city of Marysville, crime is down 6.75% year to date. Our Northern Lights project, which encompasses all of the work that we're doing up here in Smokey Point with the Embedded Social Worker Program, is down 29%. Burglaries are down 50%. Vehicle prowls are down 57%. Vehicle thefts are down 78%. All this after seeing different spikes within our crime stats from 2016 to early 2018 prior to the Embedded Social Worker Program. The efforts of Embedded Social Worker Rochelle Lung and Mike Buell are significant. They have made 1,500 contacts, equating to 233 new clients. 233. We wanted to make a difference in 25 people's lives. They placed 80 people in treatment, 78 in inpatient treatment, and 2 included outpatient treatment. 42 people have graduated from the program. 25 to 42 in a 1-year period, not a 2-year period. So again, all of that in a 1-year period. All of our efforts have used the embedded social worker resources as a means to help people, but remain vigilant with reducing criminal activity. And the last thing that I'd like to close with is, one thing that always gets missed when we're talking about the national norm and what's going on out there is the fact that some of our victims, which we don't necessarily acknowledge, is our community and our business community. They pay the price sometimes if we don't take the necessary action. And I feel the work that everybody up here has done has been absolutely phenomenal. So thank you.
Good afternoon, I'm Jonathon Ventura with the Arlington Police Department. I'm going to continue the theme about partnership and success, and I can speak from an Arlington's perspective, and I'll share some observations from Arlington. So I've been the police chief for about 3 years, and it quickly became apparent that our business community was getting very frustrated with the problems that they saw. And like the sheriff talked about, it's, what do we know, and that's arresting people. And what I quickly found is that when we arrest people, the community is like a balloon. We'd squeeze it one area and it would just pop out the other 2 sides. And for us, that would have been Marysville or an incorporated sheriff's office. And we could have some success for a limited amount of time doing that. But unfortunately, Marysville would respond in kind. And when that city is 3 times bigger than our city, you could see what the results would be. So it very limited success. So I think for Arlington, we quickly needed to find a new program, and I think what made the most sense at the time was looking at partnerships. And I'm very thankful that to be a part of this organization with our city leadership and what they've been able to do reaching out to other city governments, because what has been successful for us that I've seen not successful in other areas is the level of partnership and cooperation we have across the board. From all the way from the officer on the street to the business community. We're very involved with our PTAs, our schools. We're involved with our prosecution, we're involved with our defense, we're active in our court system. And the great thing is that all of these systems are communicating. And we are here to talk about some successes. That's not to ignore, there's a lot more work to be done. However, it's amazing what you can do when you get all of these leaders start working from the same page. So some of the successes that we have seen in Arlington, I'd like to just talk about specifically. One area that we use is our Walmart, and any law enforcement jurisdiction that has a Walmart can kind of use it as a barometer, and that's not to pick on Walmart, it's just Walmart is a natural attractor of illicit activities at times. So just in the first year of this program, our responses to Walmart have gone down 24%, which is very significant. And Walmart's been a partner with us as well. I mean, they've done some things, checking receipts on the way out, adding cameras, patrolling their own parking lots, and working with the city to enforce other ordinances. But we kind of gauge that as a barometer of what's going on in the community. But in general, since the 1-year point of this program, we've seen a decrease in thefts overall by 15%, shoplifting down 11%, vehicle thefts down 40%, burglaries down 13%, and our robberies are down 38%. So this is in a direct correlation to the program. We have one of our law enforcement embedded social worker here is Britney Sutton. She's been amazing working with Ken Thomas. Officer Thomas couldn't be here today. He's in Hawaii, unfortunately. But what I will tell you about having that, the amazing thing that team does is it frees up resources of our officers. we were responding from call to call to call. There's not a lot of time for that ongoing engagement and that follow-up activity that's needed. A lot of times people are resistant to accept help, and I agree with Chief Smith that there's a big difference between homelessness and criminal transiency. And we have to approach them different, and we're willing to approach both of them. We work very frequently with the Arlington Community Resource Center, and they're willing to work with both populations. But on the police side, what we see more often than not is the criminal transients. It's not that we don't have other homelessness in our community. I know they're there, but they're more inclined to avoid law enforcement for whatever reason. It may be they have children living in the car and they're afraid that police will take their children away and put them into some kind of CPS care. And when we do come across them, which is infrequent, our officers go out of their way to help find housing, direct them towards services. Our officers have bought clothing, food, and other things out of their own pocket to help that population. But on a daily basis, what we're seeing is the criminal transients. And those are the ones that make a living or sustain themselves by victimizing the community. They're frequently, and I don't want to paint with a broad brush, but they're frequently panhandling when you get off the freeway. They're using that money to buy drugs, and then they're shoplifting what they need for sustenance. And that's where our business community just said they were fed up. And I got that message loud and clear from attending over 100 meetings, talking to the business community. So I'm very thankful for this program. I'm very thankful for the partnerships. I want to say a little bit, Arlington, we're about a third the size of Marysville, so my numbers might not be as impressive as Chief Smith's, but for us, I'm very impressed to say that in the last year, our team has had over 904 encounters, 110 clients. We've done 96 substance abuse disorder assessments. We've had 33 people complete detox program, 24 people graduated from a treatment program itself, and the most amazing to me, as year to date, we've had success in housing over 46 people. So I think we're making a difference. We still, always looking for tweaks and other ways to improve it. We haven't reached the finish line, but I'm very happy with where we're going, and I hope that we continue to work together across all levels of government. So thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff Trenary and Chiefs Smith and Ventura. Those are some great stats to hear from both cities, and very, very proud of that. Now that we've heard about some of the community and neighborhood impacts of the program, our next panel is going to discuss the program at a more personal level. And so Executive Summers and I are going to lead off by talking about kind of the county's vision for this program and support for the program. And then we're going to hand it off to the important ones on the panel, who are the law enforcement vetted social worker teams, who are doing all of this great work on the ground. And they'll give us some real life stories of clients who have gone through the program. Before we jump into that, can I ask our third panel to come and join us at the table to my right here? Great. Thank you. So just to get this panel started, I want to talk real quickly about the importance of collaboration. This law enforcement vetted social worker program would not be possible without some huge collaborative efforts on many people's parts. So whether we're talking about the county's partnership with cities, three different jurisdictions working together, the county, the city of Arlington, the city of Marysville, whether you're talking about pairing up law enforcement officers with human services social workers, whether you're talking about pairing up the business community with folks who are in need and finding ways to help each other out. This program has been a tremendous example of how our community can come together to collaborate and really achieve some outstanding results, and we heard about some of those results on the last panel. The other thing I wanted to touch on was fiscal responsibility. So a lot of the time when we hear about different programs to address homelessness or mental health or whatever it may be, we hear about a lot of money that are spent on these sorts of programs. One of the things we've been very mindful of in Snohomish County, and I know the other governmental agencies would say the same thing, is we want to make sure we're implementing programs that are data-driven, that are results-oriented, so that we're making good decisions with the taxpayer dollars. I think Sheriff Trenary had mentioned, it can get very expensive if we're constantly putting people into jail and then recycling them in and out of jail and in and out of services. if we can implement successfully programs like this that can help people get the help they need, treatment, housing, job training, and get them back onto a healthy and sustainable lifestyle, not only is it great for the individual, but it's also great for the community and for the taxpayer through that financial savings. And so those are just a couple of the points I wanted to start with. And then before I hand it over to Executive Summers, I wanted to recognize Councilmember Sue Weiss from Arlington is also here. Thank you for joining us, Sue.
Thank you, Nate. Can you hear me okay? All right. Good afternoon and welcome and thank you all for being here. And I just really wanted to shout out and thank our partners here in North Snohomish County for the partnerships you've already heard a little bit about. I'm going to talk about some things we're doing in Snohomish County. Before I do that, we are not alone. There is no part of our county that isn't affected by opioids and homelessness and all the issues that come along with that. There is no part of our region, and as you travel around the country, you can go to many, many places in the United States and they're grappling with the same problems and same issues. So part of what we try to do is learn and find the best models out there. And I've got to say, I think the partnerships and the system we are building, have built and are building in Snohomish County is unique, and I'm extremely proud of the work that's being done here in our communities. We often think that homelessness and addiction go together, but our data from last year tells us that 60% of the people that overdosed last year in Snohomish County were in housing. They're living, they're not the folks on the street. That's 40%. There's a huge part of this addiction problem that is in all our homes throughout the community. In my own family, I've had 2 close family members affected by addiction. One through a pathway of how I'd characterize early childhood trauma and PTSD kinds of things that get you on a path that's maybe not healthy, and another who dealt with long-term pain management issues and became addicted to prescription opioids. One of the things we know is every individual has a different story, a different history, a different set of issues. So part of our solution needs to be one that recognizes that the embedded social worker program really is a doorway into a system, a broader system of treatment and help, and trying to get people back into a productive life. One thing we've done over the last year, and credit where Sheriff Trenary go, is he still here? Yeah. He and his staff came forward with an idea last year, and we talked about it and thought it was a great idea. So I partially activated our emergency management system, which is used also as a good example that earthquakes, major disasters. That system allows agencies, multiple agencies, to come together, work together under a very well-known, well-developed emergency management system to talk about who's best suited, what agency is best suited to do what, and what is their, as the sheriff likes to say, what's their swim lane. And prior to that, we had different agencies sort of competing or getting cross purposes or not communicating. So we've used that structure to really emphasize identifying who's best to do what, then identifying gaps and filling those gaps. And as Nate said, that goes to fiscal responsibility, but also effectiveness. We're being effective and efficient, and I think that system is working well. As I mentioned, no single tool is really adequate to deal with the problem. So we have Snohomish County Human Services types of services to provide. The health district has a role. Our law enforcement agencies, mental health practitioners, nonprofits, the faith community. There's a lot of pieces out there that need to be brought together into a holistic approach, and that's what we're working on doing in the embedded social worker. It really is the doorway into that broader system. 2 other things we're doing in Snohomish County. We're having our first meeting coming up of a Snohomish County Housing Task Force, and so we'll be meeting, I think, Thursday, Friday, to really talk about the not only the homelessness issue, but housing affordability, the whole continuum of housing needs. Homelessness and those without shelter are a critical part of that discussion, but it's a continuum that we need to be discussing. And again, we need to come together as a community to address those issues. And just last week for Memorial Day, we announced a new Pathways program at Snohomish County to help our enlisted folks and their families transition into jobs, especially as they leave the service. And with Naval Station Everett here in our community, it's a major need in our community. There's folks coming out of the service to be integrated into the broader society, hooked up with housing, jobs, education, that sort of thing. So we're working on a number of pieces here. Again, extremely proud of the partnerships and collaboration and the system we're building here. Thank you.
Okay, is this on? My name is Lieutenant Ian Huri. I'm with the Snohomish County Sheriff's Office, and the way I ended up on this panel is I was the original sergeant in the Office of Neighborhoods, and it started as a crime prevention position within the Sheriff's Office, but we looked at the root cause of crime. We took some community policing strategies along with some problem-oriented policing strategies and looked at what's really causing the crime out there. And we started looking at some target crimes of burglary, vehicle theft, and saw that we had some real hot areas of the county, and a lot of it focused on offenders and suspects that were homeless, suffering from addiction or other mental health issues, that if that were to be addressed, they likely would not commit that crime any longer. And if they had housing that was supportive and they could continue that, they wouldn't be out committing those crimes in the community anymore, allowing law enforcement officers to then focus on those that choose to commit crime just to commit crime. So it started with a bit of a what if. What if we took a social worker and sent them out in the field with someone from law enforcement? We had no idea what that would look like. We just knew there was this huge gap that when we would show up on a call and know somebody needed help at 2:30 in the morning, who do I call? Who do I reach out to? Who do they follow up with in the morning? There's really no mechanism in place to help them do that. So what we did is we brought in a social worker wearing a bulletproof vest out in the field with us, and we went right into the encampments. And it wasn't necessarily to go out and make an arrest, it was to just break down barriers and say, we know that you're committing some crimes because of these conditions. Let us help you find a solution that helps you get someplace healthy and safe, out of the cold, out of the weather, kick your drug addiction and work your sobriety, and we'll be there every step of the way. So the nuts and bolts of it is we preached ongoing continuous engagement with our deputies and social workers with the clients in the field. So it was different than just, here's a card, go in and make sure you check in next week at DOL to get your ID. No, we would actually go to DSHS, help them get the voucher, and wait in the lobby with them if they couldn't do it. Because someone that's battling addiction, waiting for an hour to 2 hours for your voucher, that can just be too much to try and accomplish. There's the social issues, there's the addiction issue, there's the withdrawal issues. Having someone there, not literally holding your hand, but figuratively holding your hand, walking through that with you, whether it's a social worker or a cop, became a big help. We would literally go step to step until they were in the door of treatment, and then from treatment to housing. From there, it's morphed, 10 different programs almost that we never could have dreamed of initially, but things like the diversion center opening up where we can bring people directly from the field while they're getting prepared for treatment and housing. Other opportunities in the community, we're talking about alternative courts these days and things that'll help relieve the criminal justice side of this problem and bring it back to where the agencies that can do the real help, human services, faith-based organizations, and the business community. So I know I was supposed to start a timer because I'm basically condensing an hour and a half presentation into 3 minutes, and I didn't start my timer, so I apologize. Once we expanded the program in 2015 to include some deputies and additional social workers, we began creating partnerships countywide. And when Arlington and Marysville explored the idea, it was a natural fit. We loved the idea of partnering with them. Sergeant Boyer works with the team now, as well as Deputy Malaby. We have another deputy that's going to be joining in with him and Deputy Caskey soon. And we really appreciate this partnership because it helps us reach parts of the county we haven't been able to get to yet. The social workers go out with the officer in the car every day. They go right to where the person needs help, whether it's a 911 call, a suspicious contact, or they're just going in to check on a camp or an area where there's been trespassing. They help them find out what services they need, direct them to it, and in some cases give a ride to that appointment or to that service provider. and they don't give up once they're in treatment. They continue to follow them into housing and check in on them with them once they're in housing, knowing that that housing piece is critical to them maintaining their sobriety or the stability in their life that keeps them from committing any further crimes. We talked about fiscal responsibility earlier. A big piece of this was if you look at the cost of incarceration versus the cost of housing and supportive services, depending on which report you read, it's between 4 and 7 times more expensive to put someone in jail than it is to help them get into treatment and housing. So that's a big piece of it that I've loved. The real heroes of all this, though, I'm going to turn it over to now, and they can express some of what they're seeing on a daily basis now that I sit in an office every day. So I'll turn it over to Officer Buell, Rochelle Lung, and Britney Sutton.
Apparently I'm gonna go. I'm Britney Sutton. I'm the embedded social worker for Arlington. Been doing this for over a year now, and honestly, we have quite a few success stories. I am a great proponent, and I really focus on quality, not necessarily just the quantity of people. I want them to make sure that I never see them again out in the streets, really. I'm like, if I never see you again, that's fantastic. Just know that we're happy that we never see you. I have clients who I've been doing this for a year and are a year clean and sober. One specific client pops into my mind, and that's because he ran around Arlington quite often. Everybody knew him. And we met him in Marysville jail. He was serving time, I'm going to say it was on probably a couple of warrants. And he was ready. This is one of those clients that you meet that's saying, please take me from here. He would not leave the jail until he was in our custody, because he knew if he hit the streets, he was going to use. He knew if he put his feet on concrete without being with myself and with my partner Ken, that he would go straight to using. There was no ifs, ands, or buts about that for him. So he waited in Marysville jail. When he was ready to be released, the judge had released him. He said, no thanks, I'll wait. A couple of hours, because we're busy. We picked him up, packed up, ready to go. He was detoxed, because jail will do that, thankfully. And he went to our diversion center. He was one of the first ones to walk through the door. And he, like I said, just ready and raring to go the whole time. Wanted to go to inpatient. Knew that he needed inpatient. He needed more than 30 days. He did his time. He is now, as I said, currently over a year clean and sober. He is engaged to somebody who people call a normie, somebody who has not ever used or been homeless and addicted. They're expecting their first daughter. He owns his car. They moved into a place together. I mean, he now, instead of stealing from Arlington, he works in Arlington. He pays taxes in Arlington. And he's one of the biggest proponents of this program. He will talk about this program all day long. Again, I have so many clients who are success stories, and it doesn't matter if they've reached all the way to a house and a kid. If they've simply gone to the point where they've never gone before, to me that's success. They've never successfully graduated through inpatient. They've gone 6 times, but they've never graduated. Now finally they graduate. That's success. And that's something that this program makes possible, because it is draining to see somebody for the 9th time come through your doors and go, okay. Different person. Remember, every time they're a different person. Their brain is different. They're learning different things. So I think that having this program, being able to literally go out in the woods, walk around, find them in trees, it's something that a lot of people are not willing to do, but we have to be willing to do, because they're not going to come out necessarily and ask for help. It's hard. It's hard to say, I need this, because the drug has taken everything from them. So,
Hi, my name is Rochelle Lung, and I'm the law enforcement and bed social worker in Marysville with my partner, Mike Buell, who sits to my left. And as Britney said, there's a ton of success stories that I could sit here and talk about all day. However, we can only talk about one, so it doesn't mean that it's our favorite one. It just means it's the one that came to my mind. And my story is a little different than Britney's, because he didn't take the traditional path from beginning to end. And I met him under a bridge, and actually Mike arrested him, and he went to jail, so it's a little different. It took a couple times to engage with him, because what I do find with this population is trust, as they don't trust people. And building that trust is a huge component of working with this population. And once he trusted us, then he was willing to engage. And we engaged with him, and he had a little baby with another person who was also using, and this child is currently still in foster care, and I will talk about this more in a minute. So both parents were not involved, and he went through treatment into inpatient. He actually went to the diversion center first, then treatment. He got out and went into intensive outpatient, clean and sober living. And he was in clean and sober living for about, I want to say, 8 months. He called me out of the blue, pretty recent, and said he had relapsed. This is where the trust comes in. Because I tell all of our clients, please call me or Mike if you relapse. We want to know so we can get you back on track as soon as possible. He had literally relapsed, and within a week we had him back on track, had him back in the diversion center, had him back into re-engaging in services. He has a relationship with his young daughter, who is 19 months old. He has supervised visits with her, soon to be, well, they're actually monitored right now, soon to be unsupervised. He recently, and this is all just turned around after his lapse he had. Well, there's a funny story behind that, but I won't go into it because he was in the newspaper, and that's how I found it. And that's how the foster care found about his relapse as well. So this was broadcasted through many states. But currently he's now living in a clean and sober place that has children, allows for children. It's been approved by his CPS social worker, and he's currently having visits with his daughter, and they'll be unsupervised, and he has court in June to hopefully gain full custody of his daughter. And so the reason I bring this person up is not because our other clients have not been successful. I bring it up because he's a real person. He's made a lot of mistakes, and he's also currently working full-time. He's no longer under DOC, Department of Corrections. He has attended to all his legal issues and is paying taxes. And that's what I have to say about him. But it just goes back to one thing, if I could reiterate, is we work a lot with people building trust and the quality, as Britney had mentioned, about the quality of their relationships. That's a huge piece. So I want to thank everyone for, helping us with this program. It takes a village. Thank you.
Hi, I am Mike Buell from the Marysville Police Department, and I couldn't work with a finer group of people. It has been my privilege and a pleasure to originally start with Ian. I think Rochelle and I act like a long-term couple. There's a lot of argument that goes on and who decides or what we're going to do, but it is a great team. We have had many successes. One of our successes is also sitting down here to our left visiting with us, but the real thing about this is to see people that really put the time and the effort in, and to see them successfully get to our program, gainfully employed. It's what makes my heart glad, and part of the reason why it makes me want to be a part of this team. Thank you.
Thank you so much to our law enforcement embedded social worker teams for the great work that you do. You really are the backbone of this program, and I'm just so appreciative of that. I had an opportunity to go on a ride along with our team, and I can recall one thing that really stood out to me is the team picked somebody up and took them over to the Everett station, to the transit center. And when we got to the transit center and got out, there were several homeless individuals in the Everett area who had heard about the program, heard about the reputation and the opportunity that it presented, and they came up and said, hey, can you help us out, even though we're not, we're in Everett. And so I think that just speaks to the great reputation of success and of true compassion and help that this program can bring. And that's all thanks to this fantastic team we have here to my left. So let's give them one more round of applause. So our final panel this afternoon is going to discuss some of the resources that are available in the community and some next steps for helping these folks get back onto their feet into job training and other sorts of things after participating or going through this law enforcement embedded social worker program. And so this panel includes the Mayor of Arlington, Barb Tolbert, Mayor of Marysville, John Nehring, and some local business owners from the Arlington-Marysville area. So I'll turn it right over to the mayors. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I am so excited about this program. This is a real success story. We look around at the problems facing government, and I know Mayor Tolbert and I get the opportunity to go to all kinds of conferences and other elected officials here throughout the state, even throughout the nation. One thing you've heard about at any of these over the last 5 years or so is that this is the #1 problem facing communities all across the United States of America. Big cities, small cities, rural cities, urban cities, it doesn't matter. Problems on different levels, but they face this issue. And so it's talked about all the time. Our program here in North Snohomish County has been of such success that it's received national attention. And I think what we've shown here today, and I love the stories that were just told, is that it's these folks out there working in the trenches, the embedded social worker teams who are doing the hard work. And this is tough work. I've ridden out with these teams as well and seen the hard work they do on a day-to-day basis. And I think as political leaders, one of the things that we have to do is support our police officers. These folks are out there trying to do the job to lower crime in the community, to get people the help. They need the support of the political leadership in their city. And I think another important critical part of this program and why it's been successful here in North Snohomish County is a couple of things that I wanted to touch on briefly. The partnerships, which others have already touched on, but you've seen it coming together here with the County Executive Summers Office, the County Council, the Sheriff, Prosecutor, the City of Marysville and Arlington. Barb and I have talked about this for several months and years even. And by coming together, we're able to harness the resources of everybody involved and the dollars of everybody involved and really make an impact, because this problem doesn't know city or county boundaries. And finally, another thing that I think is critical that's maybe not always done in other areas of the state or the country is a two-pronged approach that says this. We definitely want to offer you help, and we are desperate for you to take that help, because that gets you off the hamster wheel of never-ending public resources being dumped into your situation, of you having a life that eternally spirals into the abyss, and of your loved ones watching this and suffering right along with you, and of the business owners and the law-abiding citizens in our community having to deal with this at their doorstep. That's what this looks like if you don't deal with the issue of addiction. So what we're hoping, beyond hope, is that for each one of these individuals that our folks contact, that they will get the help they need to get the addiction issue taken care of and get back to being some of the stories that we heard of a productive lifestyle and a contributor to society. But we have to face the realization, I think, as leaders in a community, that not everybody will receive that help. And so we have to have a plan B. And plan B cannot be, at least in our community, that, we just consign you to a life of crime and substance abuse and living under a bridge or in a park somewhere. And I've told this story before, but I actually had an individual in their 20s, otherwise, for the most part, healthy, ask me as mayor to stop bugging him with these type of things and just allow him to live in a public area of our community. I told him that isn't my idea of compassion. That for the next, 50, 60 years, you're just gonna live out here like that. That's not a compassionate approach. Anybody who thinks that's a compassionate approach, I think is misguided. And so we have to have some teeth behind the program that say, look, we're going to be very patient with you. We're going to put public resources behind this, and we're going to come after you time and time and time again. But if Rochelle and if Mike and if the folks in Arlington, if we find that you just don't want help, that you would rather plague businesses with robbery to feed your addiction, if you would rather steal out of cars and garages and homes to feed your addiction and live out on somebody else's property, and that's the choice you've made, and you've turned down this help over and over and over again, then we're going to deal with you from a law enforcement perspective. We're going to prosecute those outstanding warrants, and we're going to go down that road, as unfortunate as that may be. And I think it's important to do the two-pronged approach with the preference, obviously being to help. And I'll close real quickly with a story, too, that has been so heartening. With this two-pronged approach, I've had on 3 instances that I can recall, and who knows how many others have just contacted our social worker team directly, but I've had 3 individuals contact me in the mayor's office. An ex-spouse and parents in the other cases. And have said, look, the individual, our loved one, is now in jail. They realize that you mean business, that your team means business here in North Snohomish County, that this operation and he or she is now willing to accept help. They don't want this lifestyle anymore. And our team has gone up and helped them as soon as possible. In one instance that it just confirmed with me how critical this program is and why I'm such a huge believer in what's going on in North Snohomish County with Snohomish County, Arlington, and Marysville, is the ex-spouse who had contacted me sent a photo and a message a couple of weeks ago. This individual that our team had helped had gotten through treatment, was out of treatment, and was now coming to their kids' soccer games and being an active participant in family life and getting his life back together. And that's, I think, along with these other stories, why we're passionate about this program. And I'm just so grateful for the partnership. You can't do these things without partnerships. We couldn't do it without the sheriff's help and leadership in establishing this before we ever got involved. We couldn't do this without the county executive and the county council's funding assistance and assistance in several other ways. And Barb and I, if we were just batting these people back and forth across our border, it wouldn't be successful either. So I appreciate Mayor Tolbert and her police chief and her team coming to the table to make sure that this is successful in North Snohomish County. Thank you.
John's taller than me. So I want to talk a little bit about the partnerships, and I hope you love what you're hearing today, how when organizations sort of merge together and stop operating in silos, how we can actually meet our goals and provide some help to people. But I want to call out some other supports that I don't think have been mentioned today, because our work doesn't stop just because we can be involved with this wonderful program that Executive Summers came up with and got his staff involved with and then shared with us. And also with the county's Health and Human Services, the entire department, trying to find the resources available so that these ladies can go out and do this real effective work in the community. But this conversation, John and I started it probably 6 years ago, When we saw what was happening in Smokey Point, and we heard from the businesses out there, and we heard from our citizens who didn't feel safe going to these parts of our city anymore. Public safety is one of our primary focuses as elected officials, is making our community safe and letting people feel safe and commerce happen in our community. So we started with some information programs. The cities teamed up long ago to do a brochure about panhandling, to call attention to the organizations that are actually doing the work in our community, and they're the ones who deserve the dollars that people were handing out the windows of their cars, because then we can assure that these dollars were going in to be a part of the cure of a system to provide people the assistance they needed. We also didn't have any family support services in North Snohomish County. So 2.5 years ago, we opened up the Arlington Community Resource Center as a response after the Oso landslide to help those families that were looking for new homes, found themselves homeless through no fault of their own, but needed support and services to wrap around them to help them get back into a productive life. That organization has turned into a great partner and really embraced what the law enforcement embedded social workers are doing, and is now the third leg of that stool in the partnership. And not only are they helping people in our community who find themselves in a spiral of addiction or homelessness, they're also helping just everybody else in the community. In fact, they have some outstanding stats that I want to brag about a little bit today, and in the front row is Peggy Ray, who is the director of that center. But in the last year, in 2018, they helped 210 individuals who were homeless become housed. That's 136 adults and 74 children in 77 families. So they're working upstream of the law enforcement embedded social workers and trying to help these crises that are happening in the community before they become the next crisis that Rochelle and Britney are visiting in the woods. So thank you for that work. I think that's really successful. And also because of a lesson of the partnerships and bringing resources together, Mayor Nehring and I also started triannual meetings with all of the service providers in North Snohomish County. So we could help them communicate across their silos, figuring out who's providing what services, how they can move clients through the most rapid, effective way of getting those services. And that's been a great success too. And it allowed us to talk to them directly about this law enforcement embedded social worker program. And we were able to uncover what treasures we have in the community. You know, the Stillaguamish Tribe of Indians has the drug and mental health treatment, so they become a partner in this and another resource for our law embedded social workers to get people the care they need. Cascade Valley Hospital, the Community Health Center, Compass Health in Smokey Point, all of the medical industry is a part of the solution to this too, as are our citizens. We talk about the next steps. You know, it's hard to keep people in recovery if they don't have a stable place to live or a way to survive. And that's what these ladies are working so hard, is that this is a holistic approach and the next steps are there. And then we have to look at the employment needs. These are often people, once they're through recovery and have stabilized their lives and they're in safe and stable housing, now they need to have employment. We need to help them navigate back into mainstream society like the rest of us. And so we reached out. We work with Workforce Snohomish County, who secured a grant to help employers fund people and families who are recovering from opioid addictions and help them become productive members of the community again. And that's the theme. We're trying to move people back into the cycle the rest of us live in a community, is to be contributing members and add to the fabric of our community. I'm very happy to partner with the foresight of the county executive and the county council, who ensured that we had the resources we needed to move this process forward. I loved that Chief Smith and Chief Ventura mirrored the relationship with Mayor Nehring and I and joined right up together to work and to look at this problem in a region and not just within our municipal boundaries, so that we weren't chasing them back and forth across the boundary and each of us having to respond every 6 or 8 months. So the last thing you're going to hear today is we have 2 of the business leaders. We also started a Smokey Point business community so we could talk directly to the business leaders in this community and give them the expertise our law enforcement had about what they could do to be contributing partners and help their businesses. And so, did we give you the questions in advance? Do you both have your questions? Okay. So I'm happy to say from Arlington, Brock Caskey, the manager of the Walmart, is here. And I asked him 3 simple questions. What actions did Walmart take in response to customer concerns and the increased police activity the chief told you about? What were the results? And what recommendations do you have for other businesses? So Brock, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right. I don't know if you can hear me. There we go. Well, I'm happy to be here. I've lived in the community for about 1.5 years, and I brought with me 4 little kids and a wife. And before I came here, just to share a little story with you, I was reading, as I was considering coming to manage the Walmart here at Smokey Point, I was reading some of the customer feedback, and I was really struck with a lot of the negative feedback regarding drug use in my parking lot. One lady even said that she wouldn't even come to shop at my store unless she had her pistol in her purse. Stories about people robbing out of trunks and being approached and being asked for money in very uncomfortable circumstances. And so I knew before I even came that this was going to be a challenge. But the other part of that was that I was very pleasantly surprised in my first couple of weeks here. Mayor Tolbert's office reached out to me, and Chief Ventura reached out to me too, which made me feel a ton better about the situation. And they were actively involved in creating a relationship with me and with my store and all of my team, and I really, really appreciated that. And I think that the results has been pretty profound for me, especially. We've seen a significant improvement in my store and the experience that our customers have. We've taken some steps in response to the feedback we received from the city, and also in response to what I observed as a leader. And we increased our security presence. We actually hired a third-party security team. We revamped landscaping and redesigned fencing to create better access for people who should be there and safer restriction for people that should not be there. We improved sight lines. We actually improved our asset protection team, improved training also, and we also worked really, really hard with the team. We have 300 associates that work in my store, and really helping them to understand what they should expect and what they shouldn't expect in the parking lot and in my store, and helping to improve the lines of communication so that what shouldn't be happening would be stopped as quickly as possible. I think that helped out a ton. We've seen over the last 18 months a 33% reduction in theft by our own internal metrics, which is significant in that we see thousands of dollars a day walking out the door. So that has been a hugely successful experience for us. The other question that was asked was, in addition to those successes, what other results do we see? I'm happy to hear that we have a 24% reduction in calls to the store too. I know that we were like the #1 call, and that's certainly not, I don't like to see my name up there. But I think more importantly for me is that we may have seen a reduction in the number of calls to my store, but from our perspective, each one of those calls were more productive to the police department has been great, and the sheriff's department in forming relationships with my asset protection team, and I'm happy to see that they're positive and productive relationships where we feel like we can reach out for assistance and support from the community, and that we can be a partner in solving these issues too. The last question was, what recommendations do we have for other businesses? I think that awareness is one of the biggest things, just making sure that you as a business leader or the people that work for you are aware of what your expectations are, and to set high standards. Cleanliness is a big thing. We don't have restrooms that we can lock in my facility, so that go-to combination on the restrooms didn't work for us, but just increased awareness and making sure that we were keeping that environment clean helped us keep that area of our store a little bit safer and less likely to be a hot point for crime. And then no tolerance too, respectful no tolerance, but no tolerance in that we don't allow people to be using drugs or to be loitering or to be charging their cell phones or to be sleeping in our vestibules or sleeping on our sidewalk or our benches, and to reduce the opportunities for that. I think that was everything that I want to say, but I do want to say thank you to the city and to the police department for all of the support that you guys have provided.
Those are some great examples of how a business can really take an active approach to this problem as well. I want to thank Angela Hernandez from the law departments here. Angela actually been involved in this pretty much since the outset. I think we had the opening press conference out at your facility, and you've stayed involved since. I know you've come to the meetings Mayor Tolbert referenced. I had a few questions for you, and I'll pass the mic down, and you may have some additional comments that you got a mic coming that you want to just make, but some of the things I know we've discussed are your experience as a housing manager in Smokey Point, kind of what you observed prior to this program, and maybe how things have changed in the housing community since, and what actions maybe you've taken also as a housing manager in combination with this program, and from your perspective, what can we all do to ensure the program is effective moving forward? And thank you for coming, Angela.
Absolutely. Okay, I'm not big on microphones, so I start. So first of all, thank you, because I'll age myself, doing this for about 20 years now, in many counties, many different cities, and have never had the direct relationship with the city, the mayor, the police, the chiefs that I've seen here. So applaud to you guys for that. So I moved from South End, Pierce County area, high crime area. And so seeing, down there we dealt with more gang related, but also drug related items. But seeing just the effort that you guys have put in from when we first built the community, we had people sleeping in our stairwells, which was not fun. They were charging a lot of money for these apartments. So we were the first community to come in that wasn't a tax credit property, that wasn't low income, and we were asking for a very high rental rate. So not a lot of people liked us at the beginning. So it was a challenge because we were spending all this money and making the community beautiful, but we didn't have people sleeping in our stairwells or walking through, knocking on doors or stealing cars or whatnot, to keep our residents happy and not suffer the consequences. We really did lean on the police department, and everybody was so quick to respond. If I ever had an issue, I would send an email and they were there to discuss it with us. And then after implementing this program, we've seen zero of the homelessness continue to go through our property. We do see a few little people walking by here and there, but nothing like what we were dealing with previously. So it's made a huge impact for us, for sure. And the marketplace as well, because the marketplace is the same ownership as the apartment community. So we're all very close-knit group and involved with each other. So I know they've seen a big difference in that as well, in the crime. Sorry, I probably spoke a little bit more than you asked.
No. Is this still on? That was fantastic. I appreciate that. Mayor Tolbert mentioned something earlier as well. We have so many great agencies providing services in North Snohomish County that need resources. And one of the things we did early on was encourage people, and I used to do this myself, that hand money out the door, to stop doing that and instead give those dollars to agencies where we know it goes to food, clothing, and shelter. When we hand it out the door, it could be going to drugs or something of that nature. Have you noticed a decrease in the panhandling in Smokey Point since that's, and I know we can't, we're just asking citizens to do that. Obviously, people can do whatever they want, but.
Yeah. I have actually noticed it quite a bit. So moving up here, new to the area, I didn't know what to expect. I did see Smokey Point was kind of had a cloud over its name. So we weren't sure where we were going, my husband and I weren't sure where we were going to stay, if this was just going to be a temporary place, but we've grown to love it so much and seen the drastic changes that it's made. We actually just purchased a house here in Arlington in September, and I'm kind of by a little bit of a homeless camp right now, but but I feel safe. Like, I don't feel like, I know that you guys are in there and you're talking to them and that they're not doing anything to harm anybody. So I don't feel unsafe about it. And I know that the resources are out there, and having the officers that are going in and actually speaking to them, I mean, that just melts my heart, because, yeah, it's just crazy that they're doing that. And hearing all those, not just the statistics, but the actual stories are huge.
Well, thank you. I think having business owners, housing managers, people in the private sector partner with us is so critical to this program being a success. So you people are a big part of the solution.
Thank you.
Well, that concludes our final panel for the afternoon. I want to thank you all for your support and your willingness to come out today and to be a part of the solution. I want to thank all of our panelists for participating in today's conversation. And Mayor Tolbert mentioned something earlier, but somebody who's not up here that really deserves recognition is our County Human Services Department. They work together with Executive Summers and Sheriff Trenary on a lot of different efforts throughout the county. And Executive Summers mentioned the multi-agency coordination group, and so they've just been rock solid in this effort, so we really appreciate them. One of the main themes from this afternoon, I think throughout all three of the panels, has been the spirit of collaboration which exists in North Snohomish County. And I think that's just so critical, really, in any issue you're dealing with government and working on some of the issues that we face as a community. But it's so great to see that collaboration between the county, cities, different agencies, coming together to try to put some meaningful resources and find some solutions to this problem. And certainly there's still a lot of work to be done, but it's great to hear some of the early successes of this program since it's been in place for about a year now. Lastly, I want to thank Smokey Point Community Church for graciously hosting us today, and I want to again thank all of you for taking the time out of your day to come out and join us. We do have some materials at the back. You'll see a table with a white tablecloth if you'd like to grab some materials on your way out. And I think all the panelists will be sticking around for a while to answer some questions if you have any. So thank you again for coming out. We appreciate it.